Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Jacksonville. You may wonder, as I have many times, how all that old stained glass in central Illinois churches stands up over the decades. Well, in many cases, the work doesn't stand up, it deteriorates, and that's where Jacksonville Art Glass offers a service to central Illinois churches and others. They've worked in Bloomington, Decatur, and now they have a very impressive job going on for a Nauvoo church. Come on and see how it's done. Well, thanks to Jacksonville Art Glass, John Kroll, we have an opportunity to go through the process of creating, actually restoring and creating new art glass for a big job. A big church in Nauvoo, Illinois, Saints Peter and Paul, I think, right?
Correct.
Now, you've done other churches, and you will do other churches, but for our purposes of learning here today, we're going to kind of tag on to Saints Peter and Paul because you're starting that job from the beginning and you're working it right through to the end. So this is a process program, and we thank you for allowing us in to take a look at it.
Glad to have you, and glad to show you a little bit of what we do here in Jacksonville. I mean, it's not too often that a full-service studio is located in a small town, usually here in Chicago or St. Louis. So this is a pleasure for us.
As a matter of fact, you used to have a studio in Chicago, and I guess you like it downstate, huh?
I do. We moved down here for my son, who's now 17, so and becoming a good glass artist himself. Yeah, we moved down here about 13 years ago, but I started my first studio in Chicago in 1980. So it's been a while.
I'm going to ask you to take us through real briefly so we can kind of see the process and the stations and who's working here and those kinds of things, and talk a little bit about the St. Peter and Paul job that you're working on. And then we're going to go through and we're going to actually look at the process from step to step, and we'll learn how it all comes together.
Yeah, just a little brief something about this job, because we were going to go in and just do a restoration, which meant pulling apart the windows, restoring the windows, putting them back in place. But the paint started coming off the glass, and you'll see a little bit of that as we go through the painting process. But the paint was getting to be so bad that we said, no, this just won't do. We got a meeting with the people with Father Sidlick and the people at Saints Peter and Paul, and you can see the new product right next to it. So we're restoring all the glass except for the medallions, which is over 5,000 pieces of glass.
Wow. And restoring means actually replacing with new glass and all new artwork.
Well, it's more of a preservation, because we're having to restore renew all the glass from its beginning again. But we're keeping to the same design and the same feel of the artist who originally did the windows.
Okay. New glass, new paint, old design.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, we'll come back and visit here, but this is actually where the painting goes on.
Right.
We call it stain painting.
Yeah, this is Sean Merchant. He is my artist here, and quite good at what he does, and just keeps coming along and getting better and better, and I'm wondering if that'll ever stop, and I hope it doesn't.
You hope it doesn't, right. Because this is a big job.
It is.
You know, this St. Peter and Paul job, I asked you how long it took. Well, you know, you started about a month and a half ago. You got another month and a half or so to go.
Probably,
so
yes.
When you take out all those windows, and they're big windows, you take them apart, little piece by little piece, and you got all this glass here that you choose from to make replacements. It takes time, and I'm surprised you can do it in a matter of months.
Well, this represents over probably about 6,000 to 7,000 square feet of glass, and from here and what we have downstairs. But what we had to do was match the glass that they have, which was over 120 years ago. I mean, so this is a long time. So we're matching colors, and it's like kitchen tile. From one lot to another, glass changes in color, but now we're matching it 130 years ago. But we were able to come up with real good close matches, and that just helps the whole process for Sean and what he's having to do with the artwork.
Yeah, the closer you can match starting out, the less difficulty he's going to have.
Right.
Now, you'd also do other work, of course, and you've done other churches before, but over here, who's this young lady here? You know her a little bit.
Well, this is my lovely wife. This is Julie, and she's doing dishes.
That's kind of like dishes, isn't it?
But all the panels that we get in here, we're having to take them totally apart, and piece by piece, one by one, we have to clean them and restore them back to their original beauty. And I often think about, people and their front windows. They'll clean their windows maybe a couple times a year.
Yeah.
But church windows, no one washes them.
Nobody washes them. And I'll bet you if they did, they'd notice that they become brilliant again, don't they? Yeah. Yeah.
You figure 100 years ago with all the soot of the coal burners and
Sure.
the things that they had.
Sure. Okay, we're working our way back to where they're actually cut the glass and put them in the frames. But let's stop here for just a moment, because we had, I think Sean, you said, was your artist up
Yes.
there. When he gets through with a piece of glass, it has to be cured.
Right.
And it'll go in a kiln like this. This is your biggest kiln. And it's working its way up now. I think it's up to about...
well, actually, it's coming back
degrees.
down.
Oh,
It
coming
had
back
already
down?
fired up to about 1,200 degrees, and it's down to about 570
Yeah.
or so, and it'll keep coming down. But we have, when you fire glass, you fire it on only one layer in an electric kiln. If we had a gas kiln, we'd be able to do it in shells. But we're only allowed to put one layer in here. We've got another one there, which is called a coffin
small
kiln.
one down there, yeah.
And that one, we've got a layer going in there also. So we get as much as we can. This one being over 5,000 pieces, we're having to fire these around the clock. In order to
5,000 pieces. What a
5,000
job.
pieces.
My goodness. And everyone individually cared for.
Yep.
Okay. And back here, we'll also come back here and take a look at what they're doing. But here, you can see the glass has been painted. It's been fired. It's actually been framed. And now they're
been
finishing
re-leaded,
up.
right.
Re-leaded, and they're finishing up with they're actually putting bars to strengthen the
Right.
process, aren't they?
Yeah, that'll be the rebar that'll hold it, make it nice and sturdy for any horizontal loads that are placed
Cutting
on
glass. Some of the glass is cut by hand. Some of the glass is cut with.
Yeah, we have a little strip cutter. Helps us with the border pieces. When we fire these, we usually gang them up about 4 or 5 or 6 across on the border pieces, and you'll get a square like that. And what Tim's doing is cutting them into their sizes that they need to be. Yancey over there is cutting them out by hand, because some of them are curved shapes and have to be cut out by hand. And then we have Gus here, who's bending the rebar that we have to fit in and around the lead.
Fascinating. 5,000 pieces. Okay, well, we'll get to see how a few of them are made anyway.
You won't stick around for all of it, huh?
Not all of it, thanks. Well, Sean Merchant, now, this has already been, we're going to go through the process here. This has already been stenciled and fired, but you have to, by hand, apply much of this, don't you?
Yeah, on the canopies of these windows, there's some ornamental glass, or more ornamental glass, and on those pieces, they need additional color put on them in mats, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm putting a little bit more color on them, and you can see here, this is an original piece, and I'm trying to recreate this piece.
Yeah.
And so I'm applying more pigments on, and I'll put another layer of this kind of green color here, and then we'll fire that in for a second time.
The difference between these old pieces and the new pieces is just astounding. Here's a perfect example. We were talking about how they may have done something wrong when they built these windows 120 or 30 years ago, because these should not fade like this,
Right.
should they?
Possibly they didn't add enough flux or something in the chemical makeup of the paint, and over the years it has deteriorated, and so we're redoing it with well-mixed paint, and this shouldn't deteriorate at all.
Now, you are, as the artist, every stage kind of starts here, because you look at the photographs and you look at the old glass and you say, okay, I want to start with this glass, this color, and then you start by taking a photograph of the design. Is that the way it starts?
Well, most of the times we'll take pictures of the windows just so we have a reference to work on, but they'll bring the old panels in, and generally we'll take them apart and clean them. In this case, we're taking them apart to use the glass so I can pick the color of glass and make tracings of the design for our new pieces.
And then you'll have a stencil from that design.
And then we make stencils from that.
But that really doesn't always cover it, because you've got this finish work, this sort of
Like I said, in the
detail
canopies
work.
here,
Yeah.
they're a little more ornamental, so we had to first make the stencil and choose the glass, and then there's this additional painting that's going on.
And this line we see here, this will be a cut line?
This is the actual shape, and you can see here where this fits right over top here. And so this will be cut out of this larger piece of glass, and you'll have two pieces there.
Yeah. Now, you got 5,000 of these to do for this job. 5,000 pieces.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big project.
That's daunting, isn't it, when you think about it?
It is, and but it's all doable, and you just do it one piece at a time.
Yeah. You were a student at ISU.
I was.
And you got your bachelor's degree in fine arts. And then you had some additional training, didn't you?
I did. This past summer, I was privileged to go and study with a master painter in New Hampshire, Dick Millard. And he recently passed away, so it's a loss to the craft, but it was a wonderful learning experience being out there.
Now, we're going to talk about the kiln process and how you have to cure these layers of paint that you put down. So far, this is rather elementary. There's not a lot to do here. You put this in the kiln, what, twice maybe?
This one will be put in twice. This one's a one fire.
A one fire. If you have a lot of detail to do, and on this particular job you don't, but if you have a lot of detail to do, and you in the art world call this the flesh, if you have a piece of window like this, you got a lot more to do, don't you?
Oh yeah, that one has 5 or 6 firings on it with different silver stainings and flesh coloring. This was a practice piece for a reproduction work. So, any windows that have figural work that's broken, we'll take that piece back and I'll kind of, in a similar way, reverse engineer it, figure out how they made it and then go into it. But yeah, that one's a little more detailed and it uses a lot more hand brushing than the techniques that we're using with the Nauvoo windows.
When you have hair and shadows and depth of field like that, that's where you run into those, I guess, layers of that
Absolutely.
You have to layer your
You're
paint.
trying to build up the shadow. The way it's done is you lay down mats, which are washes of dark pigment, and then you scratch away at those layers and you reveal the light. Sometimes glass painting is referred to as painting with light because you're bringing the light back through the glass.
Well, this is going to be brilliant, isn't it? When you
I
get
think
these
so.
things?
I think so. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After the art glass is painted, it has to be cured before it can be put in the frames. And we're looking at your biggest kiln here. It's full.
Right.
And soon this glass will be taken out of there. But we only get a brief glimpse because you can't let much cold air in there. It'll weaken the glass, right?
Well, it's on its cool down. It's past the critical point, so we can open it up for a short while so you can get a look, but it's going to have to be a very short.
We'll make it quick.
Yeah.
We'll make it real quick. Open it up there for you. Just a little bit if you would, John, and we'll see how it's stacked. I see. Okay, so it's just one layer, isn't it?
All we can do is one layer in an electric kiln.
Yeah.
Because all the heat has to come from the top and hit the surface, because you don't want it to go all through the glass, because the glass gets soft, it starts forming to whatever's under it. But you're wanting to just liquefy the top layer of the glass, the paint fuses to it, and then that's
Right. And if that's the final curing, then it's ready to be put in the frames.
It is.
Or cut
It
and then
is.
put in the frames.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Yancey, let me ask you now. First, you've got a whole stack of these panes of glass in front of you, but they're not all exactly the right size, I guess.
No, they all come back. They start out as one big sheet. And when we do our painting process, the glass is already cut. We cut it, and then we put when we paint it, we paint 2 per sheet. And then what I have to do is I cut them in half and give them this size.
Okay.
And then he needs both sizes to build his panels. So he needs a full size and a half size.
And we'll see how these triangles fit into the overall picture.
Yep.
But you got okay. And you already know how many of each you need.
Yep.
Okay. So how do you cut this stuff?
Well, basically you just line it up from tip to tip with a little bit of overhang, and then you take your edge of your blade and you want to line it up so it hits exactly right on the tip. And you test both ends. And once you get your tip exactly lined up, that way you got exactly half, you hold down on your ruler, apply pressure, cuts it in half. And you take your glass pliers and break them in.
Snaps.
Yep.
It just snaps.
And so now you got 2 perfectly good halves. And when he puts them together, they'll line up. Now, and over there, we'll make that pattern.
There you go. We got the circle in the middle again. Okay, got it. Now, it's not always, you don't always get to do a perfect rectangle, though. Sometimes you have to follow either a curved line or, you know, an irregular pathway,
Right.
don't you?
Yep, and these, we use these up on the top of the panel, or top of the window. And basically this, you just got to follow the black line all the way around it.
We were talking about the stencil before, and that's what the stencil is.
Yep.
All the purple glass on the outside or the pink glass on the outside's got to go.
Right.
Okay. Well, show us how you do that.
Then you just start at the edge. You take it all the way to the end, because that way when you break it, it'll break a perfect piece.
Oh man, that's a nice edge. I don't think I'd be very good at that.
Yeah, you'll find as you do this, the more pressure you apply, the worse cut you'll get. It'll break it in too far.
Really? Okay. So you just score it, barely score it, huh? The less
Yeah.
you, okay, so you don't have to be all that strong. It's just a matter of getting the right feel, I guess.
Yeah, get the right feel, and it's all more about accuracy. How straight can you cut a line?
Oh, that's a nice piece of work. One more edge and then you're done.
There we go.
Beautiful.
That from that.
Right there. Take that out. Cut it with my glass cutter right there. Pop that tip off.
Good straight line.
Set that. It looks like I might have cut that a hair short, but I think it'll be all right. Now I get me a piece of lead here and make sure it's the exact size I want. Which this batch has come out just a little bit big on these, which is better than a little bit small.
That lead's pretty soft, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very malleable. Put that in there. And then continue the process.
Well, now, Doug Potter, let me ask you a question while you're in the middle of all this.
Okay.
We've seen how the glass is painted,
Right.
and it's all got to be cut and then put into frames, and that's what you're doing now, isn't it? These frames that we see here, these are lead.
Right.
And
It's called lead caming.
Yeah, and they're indented so that the glass actually fits inside there.
There's a C channel, or a channel on each side. It's an H shape.
And the glass slides in there. Now, they've cut these pieces for you so they all fit together, but you're working on a pattern here.
Right.
And your pattern comes from photographs that you have in front of you here.
Right. And this particular pattern, it's a rubbing from an old panel that we took out, laid out on the table, laid this paper over, and made the rubbing to follow the lead lines. And that's what we're trying to stick to.
Now, this floral piece, or these leaves here,
Right.
this is actually had to be painted, but the glass you're using now comes this color. I guess you choose something that comes this color.
Yeah, that's it. This is the only glass in here. These thin blue lines that are not painted. All the other glass is painted.
Now, how do you know where all this goes? I mean, how do you do you just memorize it, or how do
On these, yes, the patterns it's pretty repetitive. And if I look at this, it just when I hit to this point here, the green with the red in between, they're all cut to line them up to where their pattern will go.
Okay. Oh,
just
I
lay
see.
that out.
Okay, it's starting to make sense. All right.
Lay it all out like that.
Isn't that neat? Okay.
And then this goes like this, and then if we got one that's not cut, it goes in between.
Boy, that's pretty.
And this follows through like this on the pattern. And this one will face it opposite here, and then there'll be another one there, and it just
And
works
in
its way.
between each one of these, there will be a piece of lead that'll join those? Is that
Right.
the way that'll work? Okay.
Yeah, this same lead will be in all of it.
And then when you get finished with it here, of course, it's not really stuck together. It still has to be
It's
shored
gotta-
up and...
Yeah, it's got to be soldered to hold all the lead in place,
Soldered.
and then the lead will hold the glass in place, and then the putty will pretty much weatherproof it. And then we'll add rebar to it to strengthen it. And then it'll go in. These will look really nice when they go in. I'm liking these.
Okay, Merle, now this is a process that many people won't be aware of. You've got the window after it's been put into the lead, and it has to be cemented to keep it watertight, doesn't
Yes.
it? And that's what you've got there, cement?
Yeah, that's
Special cement, huh?
what they've used for centuries.
Okay. Now, how do you apply it?
You just kind of pour some on the panel. Then you just take a brush and then you just rub it in.
My goodness. Okay, so I can see how it would seal up those
Yeah.
the cracks, but
Yeah, your
but
brush
how do you
just-
get it out of there? I mean, because you can't leave
Well,
all that cement in there.
After I get this all on, I put a powder on it to help dry it out a little bit, and this has to set for a while. And then after it sets, then we take a pick, and then you just go along and clean it up a couple different times,
Yeah.
and that looks like the finished product over here.
Oh, darn. And then you can just sort of vacuum that stuff out of there after you've cleaned it up.
Yeah,
Okay. Neat.
Yeah, that's what we do. We use a vacuum to take all the excess off of it.
That's amazing. Okay, so you're going to do you'll cement this entire window. And let's move over here for now.
Okay.
The next process would be it looks like Gus is already over there working for.
Yeah.
These things have to be reinforced while they're in the frame, or the wind and the
They
weather
sag.
will sag. Yeah.
Yeah, the glass and the glass is solid, but it's in pieces. So with all the weight, it just tends to sag. Well, we have this rebar that eliminates that.
Okay. Let's see if Gus can bend one for us here.
He's just starting one now.
Yeah, he's measuring one. Okay, and he bends it. Of course, he's got the specifications. You can see he's got a diagram right in front of him there. So
Yeah.
he's got the specifications there. Okay, that was a little too tight. That looks better.
Yeah, then he'll mark it there.
And is that lead as well, or what is that material?
No,
that he's
that's
bending?
iron.
Iron. Okay, and that's what holds the window in place and keeps it from sagging. So it's got to be stronger than lead.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And lead would just break if you try to bend it like that. Okay, let's move over here to where he's got a finished product here. So this is what he's just finished, right?
Okay. Well, he's doing it for the same church, but it's a different type. Where the one he's doing, it's got to go around these. Well, on this panel, we're not
Right.
doing that part.
And I noticed that what you've done there is you've laid the rebar down in the leaded panel, so you don't see the crossbars. You wouldn't
Right.
look through the window and see the light
It's
cut
it's as close as possible to being invisible. Now I'm going to need to bring that over here.
I mean, push.
No, I can get it. There we go.
And what are you doing now?
This is flux.
Okay.
You got, in order to get your solder to stick to the lead, you have to give it a medium to help it bind.
Oh, okay. And that's called flux.
Flux, yeah. And I didn't bring one, okay.
I noticed the joints had already been soldered where the lead came together.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to further join this to those soldered joints.
Yes.
Okay.
See, I'm heating that up. I got the solder on the other side. As soon as that iron gets hot, see how that's melting the solder?
Yeah.
And then I just hold it there, and then I'm fusing it into the solder already on the panel. Like that.
Okay.
And then I'll come over here and do the same thing over here. Put some solder on the iron. And then it just melt. That way I know my rebar is hot. I just want to hold it in place. Get it on both sides.
Solid.
Solid.
Now here's a good look at what the before and after progress is here on the St. Peter and Paul job in Nauvoo. And if you look at this brand new art glass, Sean, nice job. And this will be the canopy at the front. I assume at the front of the church. This will be the peak. Gorgeous work. It'll go right above it. And this art glass will be installed in the next month and a half or so in Nauvoo. With another Illinois story in Jacksonville, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.